So in this lesson, we're going to talk about the dollars and cents, launching and operating budget. So the main question I get when I'm doing consulting with clients is, they'll walk through my place and they'll say, oh, well, how much is this exactly going to cost me? How much is it going to cost me? And really, it's it's all relative. It's like, how do you want to tackle this? What's your budget? Because you have to stay within your budget. You can go try to open up a $2 million place on like $500,000 or $200,000 budget, or 1,500. When I first started, I started with $7,500. So, and then I grew to build a $1 million facility. So, you can really tackle it in skin and cat several different ways. But I'm going to give you a good framework on what to look for, and I'll also provide you with a pro forma that I did for a facility, and then you can kind of scrape those numbers and just follow the same blueprint as well. But this is going to be very important, and this goes back to your business plan, that you can attach this, and your pro forma is really going to say, like, I know what I'm doing. I know exactly how much it's going to cost. There will be no surprises. These are my numbers. So, your launch budget for an assisted living facility involves estimating all the costs associated with opening. It does not include ongoing operational expenses. This is just your launch budget. So real estate and property costs. So property acquisition or lease costs. So we just said that. Cheapest way will probably be lease, depending on the market, but you may have leases that'll cost more than an actual mortgage. I mean, interest rates are kind of high right now, but they're going to go down soon. So it's all relative. If you have that down payment for a house, you can purchase and then kind of save yourself a rent and own the property, because even if you get to a small facility, there's going to be some slight improvements. I mean, it's not anything crazy. It's just you may have to put grab rails in the bath where you're not made you are. You're going to have to put grab rails in the bathroom where the client has to be able to get up and down using the toilet. And that's drilling into the walls. It's nothing crazy, but it's still, you're doing improvements in the house. You might want to paint, you might want to add some different textures here and there. And, if it's your property, you can do it. If not, it's okay with leasing. I leased my first property when I started. I found a place because the economy had collapsed. I used to be a contractor, and I kind of went out of business because of the economy collapse in 2008. And I had already been doing assisted living. I was already thinking about doing assisted living. I was volunteering at a place, and I decided on, doing it as like a secondary business because I was a contractor. And then I found a place, I leased it. I only had 7 beds, and I painted, I did some work to it. And then this was 2007. When 2008 hit, I couldn't put a doorknob on for anyone because the economy had collapsed. So I ended up having to do assisted living full time. So I've been doing it full time ever since 2007. And my first place I leased first place I had was pretty much a lease. And then from there, I saved money. I worked myself, saved money up, and then I went on ahead and built some facilities. I had a partner, an investor. I had my numbers together, and when I went to her, I said, hey, I want to do a assisted living facility. And she's like, wow, you can do these numbers? I was like, yeah, I just need to build a couple of places. I got some money saved up. And so her and I built my next 2 facilities. And then from then on, the ball's been rolling from there. So, so going back to the original point, I know sometimes I ramble on, but the launch budget item, you do your renovation and cost expenses. So if you're just doing minor painting here and then, you have to just, get your estimates. So you'll find a place, even if you're renting or purchasing it, you'll find a place, you get a contractor or 2 or 3, walk them through and get estimates. And then you get estimates on everything you want, and that's going to be your renovation and cost expense. So you don't have to have any guessing there, because you're going to take the best estimate, or the company that you feel the safest with using, you'll use that estimate and plug that into your pro forma. Then you look for insurances for the property and the business. So you get your insurance quotes. That's an easy phone call. Tell them what you want to do, like you're leasing a property. or you're buying a property and that you want to do run a business out of it, and they'll give you insurance quotes. And you can. I'll try to also plug in some places that I use in here as well. They may not be in this first iteration, but if you keep checking in, I'll be plugging stuff in here and there. So keep looking for it. So you plug in those numbers directly into the pro forma, and then you have those numbers. So it's not hard to really get a good property cost and real estate budget, and because those numbers are pretty cut and dry, and you can go to outside sources. You don't have to be a contractor or architect to get the numbers. You just call people and get estimates, or you may have someone that you know that do and let them give you an estimate. Or you may be handy, do it yourself. I don't know. Licensing and regulatory compliances. So whatever licensing fees, which is normally not anything crazy, a couple $100 to $1,000 of licensing and permit fees. And then legal consultation and consulting fees. So say if you're like hiring me for a consultant, or you're hiring a lawyer to do you look over the documents, just plug those forms in. It's always good to have a consultant that's been through it before, or legal advice, because when I started, I made so many mistakes starting out. I probably could have had 4 or 5 built in the time frame of like the time that I was only able to do my second one, because I just was learning so much and I was making so many mistakes and I didn't have any help. I didn't have anyone to help me. So it's things I just look back on like, oh, I lost so much money, I made so many mistakes. But when you're learning from the school of hard knocks, and sometimes us guys can be definitely a little more hard-headed than women. I find like even consulting, like a lot of women will call for help, and us guys, we're like, oh, we can do it ourselves. I'll do it myself. I know what I'm doing, and that bravado. And I was definitely, I definitely fit into that in some aspect. And then a lot of times, when I was going to ask for help, say when I got myself into a pickle or I didn't really know what I was doing, I went to ask for help, and people wouldn't want to help me. So it's a mixture of both. But now it's resources out here, and it's, call lawyers, call people who you can call to get advice. Sometimes you can get overload of advice. I see people do that a lot, and it can hurt you, but just get a good amount of advice and help from people. Even call the state. You can call the state. The licensing people, like they're there to license you, but they can answer questions. And even if you don't have a license yet, you can say, hey, I'm looking at a license here, can you give me some help? A lot of times they're busy. So you never know. You may get someone that may be feeling nice that day, and they say, I'll help this person out get started. So staffing and ramp up, hiring and training staff, including caregivers, nurses, administrators, and support staff, employee salaries and benefits, background checks and certifications, recruiting and advertising costs. So that's going to be your staffing. In the beginning, when you get licensed, you're always going to want to hire, you have to have your staff lined up. So because the licensing authority of the state, their job is that when they give you your final stamp to say you have your license, they want you to be able to move someone in that day. So you have to have all your staff and everything situated. So, they know you're not going to have any clients. So if you have, yourself down and a few staff members, that's fine. And you just have your staffing plan, who's coming in when. And the people that aren't necessarily, your family and that's going to help you, or like you really have to have staff, you have staff, just pay them a retainer. And you can look up our tax site. It's like Meta PRN. You can find people and actually contract them and say, hey, I'm not open yet, but I want to pay you a retainer. I want to use you on my licensing information. And when I actually open, I want to bring you on as a staff member. And they'll normally understand, because sometimes they have their own jobs, and this site is more towards like gig and contract work. So you can say, okay, give them a retainer. That can be $100, $500, whatever, if it's a manager, whatever. And then say, okay, when I finally open and get licensed, then we can start. But for now, I just need you to show up on my staffing plan. And you can train them, you can tell them everything, how you want to run the business, and let them agree and sign all the necessary paperwork. And then when you're ready to get started, you just activate them and say, hey, we got the license, we're ready to get rolling. Then you've been advertising, so you may have a person or two to move in at that point. So you're like, hey, we ready to go. And you also keep these people in the loop during the licensing process. Like, hey, we got our final inspection in 20 days. So be ready. Once we're done that, I have a few people looking to move in, and we're going to look to hit the ground running. So it's all about just planning and communication with your staff starting off. But you have to pay them because no one wants to do anything for free. So just work that into your budget, whatever you agree with these staff. You can go to that site or find people that you know. I'll link the site as well. Marketing and promotion. So how are you going to advertise? How are you going to find people? So like we talked about before, you can do SEO. You're going to need, I strongly encourage people to get stuff that people can feel, like brochures. I know it sounds old school, and I'm not that old. I'm only 41 years old, but I still like to use brochures and just hand stuff to people because you're talking about an aging population. So a lot of these people, they're going to want to see where they're moving into. Like they're not just like invalid where they can't read or write. These are people that have had full lives, and they're not necessarily up on all the technology. So you want to say, when you go to visit this person, you want to have a brochure to hand this person. Say, hey, I'm coming to visit you. I'm interested in you living in my facility. I've talked to your daughter or son, and I've talked to the social worker. Here's a brochure with my information on it. It's a little bit about my facility. Read it at your own convenience. And if you have any questions, you can call me or have one of them call me, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you on the phone, or I can come back here and interview with you. You'd be surprised that I see people go to these the interview clients or meet clients. They don't have any information to hand to these people. They don't even really talk to people. They're mainly trying to talk to the person that's making the decisions, like the son or the daughter or the social worker. They're mainly talking. But these are the people that's going to be living in your facility. So you have to sell them too. And that person can very well say, I don't like this person, or I feel more comfortable with this person. Like I've gotten so many clients because that person has felt comfortable with me as a person. They say, oh, Kwame came to me, he sat by my bed, we talked, he gave me his brochure, his number was on there, he told me if I had any questions. Like you have to empower these people, even though because they're feeling at this point like their independence may be getting stripped away from them. So you still have to empower them so they can then feel like they're humans. Like, can you imagine that someone's just putting you in a place and you want to be living home, but you can, and you're upset about that. Now somebody just making a decision. You may not even have been to the place, and now your family's telling you got to go to this place, some social worker. So it's always important to engage in this process, in the marketing process with the person. So, all right, now I went off on a tangent, but let me get back to the point. Document your marketing and promotion budget. Make sure you have that down. You do your web development, maintenance, your costs, costs associated with billing and occupancy, whatever that is, whatever you want, the brochures, the internet marketing. I'll list several outlets on here for you guys that you can use, that I use. But nothing beats the human element. Nothing's going to beat the human element. So if you think about getting into this business where you can't, get out and pound the ground, then, it's going to be hard to start off in a small capacity because you can do it if you don't want to be involved. You can hire someone to do, your boots on the ground marketing, but that's going to cost you. Like hiring someone to go out to facilities and hand out your flyers and talk to people. And you're going to have to interview that person. You're going to have to pay them, whether that's a salary, and you have to pay them a salary, and you have to pay them per person that comes in. So then you have your referral agencies too, which is going to take 1 month's rent. So you can use referral agencies. You can use high people that you bring on. It also depends on the structure of your facility. Like if you have a facility, a 16-bed facility where you're charging, say, $4,500 a month, and you're bringing home $40,000 a month profit, you can say, okay, well, I can sacrifice out of my profit $45,000. Sorry, if you're bringing in $40,000 profit, you can say, okay, if I'm making 40 grand a month, I can sacrifice $3,000 a month to pay a marketing person that's going to go hand out flyers and do other stuff that I don't want to do. You can do that. You have the money, but you also need to start paying them before you even get open. So it's kind of like you still have to account for that, that money. It's not just like you're waiting till you get full. What I did was I did it all myself in the beginning, just to learn the business. And I suggest you do it yourself to learn the business, especially if you're not familiar with the business, if you're new. Get out, learn the business, and then like just hire someone to do it. Hire a marketing person to get out and do it. And then you just train them on everything you do. And then you'll know if they're doing a good job or not, because if you'll be full all the time and you'll have vacancies. You're like, okay, we got 3 vacancies. Are you not doing your job? So that's an easy, way to measure success in that job. But in the beginning, it may be too expensive to hire someone unless you have a nice budget. So we'll talk about a performer. A performer provides detailed financial projections, including estimating revenue and expenses and ongoing operation. So that's going to when say you're going to an investor, this is what you hand to the investor, a performer. It's literally it's pretty much a high-powered business plan. It's going to break the numbers down. It's going to have all the meat and potatoes in it. It's going to be like your elevator pitch, but on steroids on paper. So this is what it's going to have. Key perform item, operating costs, utilities, office supplies, cleaning and maintenance, security and surveillance, your resident service amenities like meals, recreational activities, transportation service, health and wellness programs. Like you have to have activities. That's another thing we haven't talked about yet. You have to have activities in your facility. So you can be an activities coordinator, but you have to have activities. So what I did was I had a budget. Each month I had bingo night, I had cards, I had, bands come in. Some of the stuff is free. People do it for free. Like churches will come, you'll contact the church and say, hey, can you get a band to come in and play for us every once a month or every couple of weeks, and you sign a contract with them. I had magicians come in. That was a hit. I've had, you do trips like to different spots. I know some of my clients wanted to take a trip to Walmart. I'm like, what's in Walmart? But that's what they wanted to do. They took their money, they went to Walmart, they got their stuff, and they were happy to do it. And I was like, okay. And then in the summertime, we would do like park events and things like that. But you have to have activities and you have to make sure you budget for them. Ongoing marketing and promotion. So after you're licensed, after you're up and running, we talk about this. Are you going to be your own marketer? That's going to cost. You have to get the materials. You have to maintain your Google ads and your social media marketing. And if you hire someone that's going to manage the facility, you have to pay them their salary. That's not manage the facility, manages the marketing. You have to pay them their salary. So you always want to have a healthy marketing plan and make sure you keep it active, because you just never know in this business when you'll get a vacancy, because people don't, it's not necessarily people passing away, which they do, but you'll have people that may level out. They may get to the point where they need nursing home. So then you have to transfer them to a nursing home. So they may have an assessment, and your delegating nurse will say, hey, she's getting to the point where her assessments are coming in where she's more like a level 4. And as a level 4, they can stay in your facility, but the family have to sign a waiver saying that they can stay in your facility. They can't come in as a level 4, but if they are a level 4, if they transition to a level 4 in your facility, you just have to have the family sign a waiver saying that they want them to stay there, and you're fine. But some families may say, oh, we want her to go to a nursing home, but it's just all up to them. So you just never know. You never know when you're going to have a vacancy. Administrative expenses. So you have your manager, your bookkeeper, whatever software technology you use to maintain your facility. There's so many. I'll link a few here, and I'll keep adding them, as I say. Like after we even release them, you can come back and keep revisiting. I'll keep adding stuff as I come across it to this platform. So you have your emergency and contingency fund. So it just is not really, you have to have an emergency plan, but it's always best to have a fund. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but you should always have an emergency fund. Put it in some kind of account where you can say, all right, in case something happens, a pipe bursts and we need to relocate the clients, then you can go relocate them before you get work done. Or for example, and I had an 8-bed facility, my second one actually, and it was actually big enough to do 16 beds, but I just didn't really have the money. I built the place, but I didn't do a sprinkler system. Now sprinkler systems are a lot cheaper, but back then they used to be a lot of money. They used to be, upwards of like $50,000 to do a sprinkler system. And I really couldn't afford it when I built this place. So I just did it without it, and I just said I'll add it later. But with a sprinkler system, I could have 16 clients, but without it, I could only have 8. Now it's 4. Before you need a sprinkler system in this area, and then all areas are different. So don't quote me if you're in like Texas, someplace like all the laws are different in different areas, especially fire. But for example, I had an emergency fund. I was just putting money away because I didn't know what happened. And before I know it, I would just like put a certain amount of money like every month in it. I had enough money to pay for a sprinkler system. I was like, oh, I didn't have any emergencies or anything like that. Everything went well. Now I'm going to add this sprinkler system. If I use that emergency money and I just put in a sprinkler, I didn't even have to take it out of my savings. So, I added a sprinkler system, and then I did a bid increase. I raised the bid number from 8 to 16, and I just doubled my money, just like that. So, and then you just replenish your emergency fund. But I always suggest you have that just in case something happens. Like I've never had anything happen. The most I've ever had happen was bed bugs. And this one, like bed bugs was like really like a big thing. Now it's not so much, but I had a new client that came in, and I did an interview. I interviewed them, and I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't ask whether they're big. Now I have my people ask, but I didn't ask, well, were there bed bugs or were there any kind of infestations in the last place they were? And I just didn't ask. And the guy moved in, he bought all his clothes, and his clothes had bed bugs. So then we noticed some bed bugs in his room, and he had brought all the bed bugs in from his old place. So we had to relocate the facility and then do a remediation, which costs money. So that's the one time I actually had to like move people out, and it was all because I didn't have in my policies and procedures or in my procedures where I was onboarding a client, I didn't ask the right question. That guy had only been with me for a month, and he probably cost me $20,000 just coming in without me asking one question. Because if you ask and they say, yeah, we had bed bugs, then you say, okay, leave all your stuff in a facility, and where he was, and we get you new stuff because you're not bringing that here. But I asked, I wouldn't have had a problem. So then you have in your performer furniture and equipment and maintenance. So that's also a part of I put aside money for maintenance. That's a maintenance slash emergency. That's like the fund I was kind of talking about. And out of that, I'll do, set aside money for emergencies, but also you can have updated furniture, because in these facilities, like you have clients that are using things a lot more than a regular home. I would suggest you set aside money and you replace things as they need it, and you set aside a fund for that. You just put it in like an interest-bearing account, so you have that money making money for you. So always have a budget in your performer. Going back to the original topic again, in your performer, your budget has to include furniture and equipment and maintenance. So if you have a 16-bed facility, you have to have it all outlined saying, okay, I'm buying 16 beds. The beds, these are the type of beds I'm going to buy. I always put links. I'll give you guys a copy of a performer that I use, and you can just, like I said, reverse engineer that. But you just have to be very detailed and say, this is all the furniture I need, because if you submit this to an investor, they're going to want to say, okay, this is exactly how much it's going to cost. Because the last thing you want to do is go to someone or go to a bank and ask for money, and you don't even really know how much you need. You're just like, oh, I think I need this. And you give them a business plan, the business plan has nothing in it. And they're like, we can't use this, or it's not a good business plan. You should see some of these business plans I see. I'm like, no one's gonna want to invest in you with this. No bank, no person, unless it's your mother. Your mother might not even want to give you money for this. So you have to have a good pro forma, and it has to be very detailed, even down to like toothpaste and everything you want to get starting out. Like have all that stuff in there, and just say, okay, miscellaneous items, toothpaste, toiletries, etc. 2,500 to start. And that's what you put in your performance. Oh, they'll see that, okay, this person knows exactly what they want to do with the money. So then you have ongoing staffing, and that's gonna like factor in to your profit and loss. So they want to see how much every month you're gonna spend on your staff, your employee salaries, your background check. Like this is like the recurring like things that you need, advertising costs monthly. So you buckle all this in, and this is going to end up turning into your expenses. And then you take that and minus it from your rents, and that's how you get, your profit. So, and it'll make your life a lot easier because then you'll know, say if you're thinking about buying place A and then place B, and you say, okay, well, in place A, I need to do a little more work. I need to do this, I need to do that, but I'll make more money. And then place B, say I can spend a little bit more money and a little bit less money in the upfront, but I might not make as much money on the long run. So you can just compare and see from doing a pro forma on each property that you're thinking about buying. You can say, okay, long term, I'll make more money from this property. You'll be able to look at a pro forma and see that very clearly and say, all right, well, I'm going to make this decision. Or if you don't have enough money in the front, you'll say, all right, well, I can't really afford to just put out this much money in the beginning. I'll scrap this and I'll take this one, place A on. So it just makes it a lot easier for you to kind of, understand what you want to do, how much you're going to spend. If you're submitting it to a bank, like they're going to want to see it and they'll look at it, they'll say, okay, well, they'll show it to their their board, and they'll say, okay, well, this person has their stuff together. Let's take a chance on them. Or if you're just going to investors, and I'll tell you how to find investors as well. It's not as hard as you think. So yeah, like I said, I'll give you guys a template of the launch budget and pro forma, and then from there, you guys can reverse engineer and add what you want. And if you also need me to consult, I will go ahead and I'll add like additional features on here where you can maybe get me for a month, and I'll help you go through all this stuff and plan and set this stuff up.